Christmas Eve. We've just heard the story of Jesus once again, a story a lot of us have heard quite often. And I have to say, I always find it so interesting that there's a census called and they have to travel. I can distinctly remember complaining about having to do the census a few months ago, and all I had to do was open up my computer and do it. It wasn't very hard. They had to travel for so long, and they traveled, and they traveled, and they traveled, and they got to Bethlehem. And they walked, by the way. They walked all the way there. They go to an inn. They knock on the door, and the innkeeper says, "I'm sorry, I don't have any room for you. And by the way, no one else will either." And he says, "But I do have a stable out the back." Now, I wonder about this innkeeper. Imagine how this innkeeper would have felt if he knew who he was saying, "I don't have room for you, but there's a stable out the back." How would he have acted differently if he'd known that Jesus was the one he was saying, "Go to the stable"? If he was literally telling God, "I don't have room for you." Do you think if perhaps he had known that Mary was going to give birth to God, to Jesus, do you think he might have acted a bit differently? Yeah? I think he would have. He probably would have kicked someone else out of their room, said, "On your bike, I've got a more important client." He would have acted a bit differently. He probably would have wondered, after shepherds and wise men came, he might have thought that he'd missed a trick here. That perhaps this baby was more important than he had given it credit for. Isn't it a terrifying idea? I wouldn't want to be in that innkeeper's shoes. To learn that I had told God, "I don't have room for you, but there's a stable out the back." Now, I wonder, just to juxtaposition that with ourselves, how would we feel if tomorrow you were getting your lunch ready or your dinner and you heard a knock at the door and you opened up the door and on the other side was Jesus? He said, "Hello, I've come for Christmas at your house." I wonder how we would feel. Now, we actually know it's Jesus, to be fair. The innkeeper didn't have that information. But what would we do? Would our Christmas plans change a little bit? Would instead of traveling to Christmas, we might go, "Actually, we're going to stay here and we'll scrounge something up for our fridge." Or perhaps if we knew it was Jesus coming, we would roll out the welcome wagon. If we were going somewhere, surely we'd stick him in the car and take him with us. We'd do anything we can, wouldn't we, to make space for Jesus? Fair comment? Would anyone not make space if Jesus turned up tomorrow for Christmas? No? Good to hear. I'm glad about that. Absolutely, we'd make space for Jesus. We'd do that. Well, I have something very important to tell you. Jesus actually will be at your Christmas tomorrow. He'll be there. Each and every one of us who are having Christmas tomorrow, each and every one of us who isn't celebrating Christmas tomorrow, Jesus will be there. He'll be there at our Christmas meal. So, think about it. If Jesus knocked at your door and said, "I'm here for Christmas," what would you do to make space for Jesus? Well, and then I've just told you Jesus is actually going to be there tomorrow. Because Jesus is in each and every one of us. That Jesus is everywhere. And he'll be with us tomorrow at Christmas. So all those things that you are going to do to make space for Jesus, if he actually knocked on your door, why don't we do them? If Jesus knocked on my door, I know I would tell him, "Well, I have a church service I have to go to, but you can come along." Of course I would. Different things like that. But, there might be people who'd go, "Well, Christmas is a busy day. I don't have time for church." Would you make the effort to go on Christmas if Jesus was there? Would you set an extra place for him at the table? Would your grace that you pray before you eat be just a little bit longer? Would you maybe read a Bible reading after you've finished your meal? Might you sit together and pray after the meal? What would you do if Jesus was there? Why don't we do those things? Because Jesus is with us at Christmas. I mean, shepherds, we just heard, shepherds left their sheep out in the open. Could have been stolen, could have been taken, could have been killed. They left them to travel to Bethlehem to see Jesus. Wise men came from a very, very long way away to come and see Jesus. And this is when he was a baby. He hasn't even got to the teaching, dying, or rising bit yet. They put in so much effort to go and see the baby that was Jesus. And what do? How do we make space for Jesus at Christmas? Maybe it's something that we need to work a bit harder on. But I have some good news. The innkeeper that didn't really make space for Jesus gave him a barn out the back. You know what? Jesus would have loved that. He would have loved the fact that this man didn't kick someone else out for him. He would have loved the fact that this man found a space for him at all in his stable. But even if that innkeeper had said, no, there's no room for you, going onto the street, Jesus still would have loved that innkeeper. That's what he came here for, to show love. And so, even though that innkeeper maybe could have made more space for Jesus, Jesus still loves him. And it's the same with us. Even though tomorrow we might be caught up with cooking, making lunch, having time with friends or family, traveling, all different things. And we may forget to say grace, or maybe do a bit of a shorter one than usual. We might not pick up our Bibles or pray afterwards. We might be caught up in the fun, in the family, and we might forget Jesus a little bit. We might not make space for him. Jesus still loves each and every one of us. And we see that in the fact that one day, many years from Christmas, he died on a cross for us. Not because we deserved it, not because we make space for him, but because he loves us. And so, tomorrow is Christmas. And I would like to implore you, because Jesus is with you, try and make extra space for Jesus at your Christmas. Maybe do say that extra long grace. Maybe do find time to read the Bible together with your family or with your friends. But remember that no matter what, Jesus came because he loves you. And even if you forget to make space for him, that doesn't change and will never change. That's why he came. That's why he died. Because he loves you. So make some space for Jesus at Christmas. Maybe set an extra place at your table for him. But remember that he loves you no matter what.